Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, and I'm taking issue with Batman and Robin Eternal. The previous issue saw Red's Hood and Robin teaming up with Bane to infiltrate the monastery for the Order of Saint Dumas, which had taken root on the island of Santa Prisca. There, they found Azrael, the latest victim of DC's rebooting stupidity. We flash back to Mother, revealing she discovered Batman's identity and taunted him with the need for a better sidekick than the young orphaned acrobat Dick Grayson. And it turns out not even anger-suppressing prescriptions could keep me at bay when it was declared that Harper Row was somehow suddenly the only comics character with a tragic backstory. Or at least the only one the writers on this blasted book even care about.
This is it! This is the big one! I'm a-comin', Elizabeth! Issue 10, Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly back on scripts from last issue, and we're right where we left off with Red Robin, Hood, and Bane facing Azrael, but now some robed goons are incoming from their six. Tim can't get a read on the Angel of Death's capabilities because I guess his mask can just instantly tell him what someone can do, like a Pokedex? Bane shows his lack of intimidation at the purported Angel as he leaps towards him, and the goons show their sigils can do things like make guns explode. They also have enhanced speed, but we don't get much of a visual on that, just Tim mentioning it, in true Eternal tradition. Bane's venom is cut off, but he's still intent on ending Azrael, whose ominous talk is followed by placing his hand on Bane's head, giving him a glowy red vision of, well, it looks like Azrael if he were the traditional-looking angel. Red Hood thinks this is the best time to surprise Az, but Double R mentions Bane wanted the fight, and he got it. Besides, too many goons. As they head out, Bane mutters that he now sees he was wrong.
There was always a difference between butter, and I can't believe it's not butter. But I didn't want to believe.
Whilst they take out a drone in a nearby hallway, Red Hood is complaining about not killing someone with bullets in a while, and that they're lost in a huge enemy base while he's running out of ammo and ideas. Red Robin, however, wants to keep on mission, though attempts some kind of self-referential crack by saying his cohort is everyone's least favorite Robin. Can't say I disagree. He accesses the damaged drone to locate the mainframe, and arrive after shooting a grapnel line upward, through what seems like an elevator shaft, but without an elevator? How do they even use... whatever. Tim hands his computer to Jason, which looks like it's blocked off by a dialogue bubble, so he can hack the system while Drake fights off more evil monks.
So let me paint you the picture here. Jason Todd, who was originally taught by Batman to fight without guns, and has since forsaken those teachings for firearms and ammunition, is so useless in a fight without those weapons that he needs a younger crime fighter to fight off people trying to kill them, doing so distracted while walking him through hacking a computer system that it would be far faster to hack if Tim, the established computer genius, was the one doing the actual hacking. How does anyone like Red Hood?
Red Useless manages to access the Order's financials, using the signal wavelength they discovered in Gotham, and has found something. After Red Rob dispatched the last of the robed goon squad, they've found transaction records with a Prague shell company, not in cash, but asset trades, including Dumas handing over Project Ichthys. For those unaware, this is an Ichthys. And no, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, but what are you going to do? After that, the Order commissioned Project Azrael, involving one Jean-Paul Valley, who has no records other than appearing in the list of Mother's children.
No, I am willing to bet that someone working on this book thought, while we're in the process of screwing up these characters royal by stupid and pointless reinventions, why don't we connect them into the same evil villain shtick? People love pointless and superfluous character connections. Just ask George Lucas.
Years back in Prague, Bruce has returned from his meeting with Mother, finding Robin's observe-only mission became a bit more confrontational, as noted by a bleeding wound on the teenager's arm. He may have gotten a map of Scarecrow's operations, but it's the third time he's rushed headlong into a dangerous situation. Bruce, hiding an injury of his own, demands he take off the mask, since Robin is more of a support role, and that's when Grayson loses it. The identity was his idea, and when Batman needed him, he was there, and now storms off declaring that if his mentor won't admit there's a more equal partnership to be had, perhaps their days as a duo are over. Later, Bats is out and prowling, narrating about his first black eye, given by a child bad-mouthing his family, though Kid Bruce did some damage himself. He's actually telling this to Mother while she's in the middle of a meal. Rude. Saying he doesn't make the same mistake twice, and is willing to listen to the human trafficker's solution to his sidekick problem.
He says he doesn't repeat mistakes, but remember, he's saying that before these noticeable errors.
Returning to Santa Prisca, Azrael has found the red intruders speaking all flowery about Batman being dead and why they're in the monastery. He knocks Hood across the room, and RR goes on the offensive, on two fronts, physically and verbally, saying that his miracles are tech and he's little more than a science project as he flips over and unmasks his opponent. Az says he's aware of his name and the technology, but basically still relates it to the Order's faith. He mentions Aeon Telios, which may or may not be a mistake, because in Gnosticism there are very divine emanations, one called Ion Telios, another called Aeon. So this may be a typo. If anyone has a better source on Gnosticism, feel free to leave an informative comment. Az then grabs Tim's face so he can find Murasame, and experiences, well, just take a look for yourself.
Murasame is a Japanese word meaning village rain, where precipitation has fits of heavy and light. We see Tim having a funky drug trip through space where his face is peeled off while Bill's Cypher clones conga through a smoky sigil. Same thing, basically.
Though you gotta give Azrael credit, he does accurately point out that this version of Tim Drake was forged in hubris. But acknowledging a problem isn't the same as fixing it, and given the attention these books have given Harper Row, I don't think they consider hubris a bad thing. Moving on, after the Pro-Arc imparts its knowledge, Hood decks Jean-Paul, grabs his ally and his can of shark repellent, and heads out an already broken window to the waters below, as Tim mutters they've failed Bruce. Azrael glares at the computer monitor as narration from Dick Grayson mentions how tricky finding the truth can be, not just because those you love and trust may be hiding something, but the one that lies to you most often is yourself. Jump to him and Harper, the latter having found an artisan baguette worth of breadcrumbs of a trail. They have a lead on Orphan, whose past was so falsified Batman couldn't find the truth. Good thing I'm not Batman.
This comic's obvious and unrelenting preference for Harper Row is truly nauseating.
The pair take to distracting a banker, finding several transactions from years back in 0 year, to brawling with some guys in a place ritzy enough for a curved staircase, to shaking down some guy for info. All the while, Grayson is admitting Harper's natural talent, and isn't some kid in over her head. Which Harp makes a point to say, yeah, she knows.
Harper Row has few, if any, natural talents all her own. The one focused more often is the one where she is instantly whatever bad writing insists she be so as to grab focus from better established characters, most if not all of whom she has stolen most of her qualities from.
Grayson tells her to take the compliment, as it may be the last one she gets. Oh, if only that were true.
The Eternal books have frequently shown they will stop at nothing to make sure Harper Row is complimented, even if what she's doing isn't important or even unique. Again, due to bad writing. If she's not complimented by people, the rare times she's not, she will demand to be complimented. And if no one's around to compliment her, or she has to wait 5 whole seconds before someone does, she will compliment herself, because she is just that vainglorious.
They're in Mudge Island, British Columbia, scuba-ing to the home of David Kane, whom Harper wonders if her first supervillain lair will be atop a volcano or a sky city, but it's just a house, an opulent one that makes her feel safe as she used to as a kid. But Grayson tells her that's all the more reason to be on guard. That's when they meet the Sculptor, who already knows everything about Harper Row.
Knowing this series, it's because Bluebird is so amazing, people now have to instantly acknowledge her greatness and history the second they meet her for the first time.
Issue 11, scripted by Ed Brisson, features a cover not far from that space ride Tim just went through. The lady is saying how much Feather for Brains has been through in her life, which we're expected to believe because no one on this book knows how to give a visual representation of her supposed hardships. Harp wants to know why this strange woman feeling her face knows about her life, and Agent 37 wants to know where David Kane is. Their target wasn't sloppy enough to leave the trail they followed. That was all Sculptor.
Well, that makes a lot more sense. It's just another example of Harper Row being handed things, only this time it's misinformation to lure her there. Though you would think that Dick Grayson, of all people, would have at least suspected something when the girl with zero deductive skills whatsoever managed to find a villain's lair when Batman, the world's greatest detective, couldn't. But then that would have meant criticizing Harper Row, and we've established that's not allowed.
The woman can only give a guess at where David could be, but what Harper wants to know is if she's really done a lousy job of hiding her identity.
Is it the hair?
Well, the hair, the piercings, the idiocy of your first costume just being you in a catsuit with your face exposed.
After readying a cigarette, Sculptor psychically influences the girl to relax, but because of Spiral, Grayson's brain is much more secure. She says she's helping them because Mother needs to be stopped, by them and soon, before she completely moves her operations and is never found again. Sculptor works for Mother, telepathically molding children into whatever Mother wants, but now she's closing up shop and axing her children, which the telepath can't watch happen again.
So all the other murders and atrocities you've been an accomplice to were hunky-dory?
The only way to let Grayson know where to find her boss is through a mind share, so that he sees and experiences what she's capable of. But the spy tech in Grayson's noggin makes that really risky, so Harper volunteers. Grayson objects using her real name, which she objects to, even though the mind reader already established she knows who she is. If it'll shut down Mother and help find Cassandra, she's willing to try. First up is Cassie's training from Orphan, whom Sculptor says is Cass's father, and a staunch devotee to Mother, siring a daughter as the ultimate tribute. The psychic then proceeds to exposit the girl's whole body language reading deal, that growing up interacting with only David, never speaking, forced her to learn to read people and anticipate their movements. Empathy and trust could prove fatal, and compassion was a weakness. Harper is next shown the nursery, where Cass lived in secret, away from the other children and Mother, who was developing new ways to traumatize and thus mold her operatives, including using Scarecrow's fear gas. But David preferred the older methods, which included slaughtering dozens of children in front of his daughter to traumatize her and numb the girl to seeing death.
What is wrong with you people on this comic? I knew you were going to screw up Cassie's origin, but this is just sadistic.
Kane pitted Cass against the most skilled fighters he could find, which looks like it included a biker bar, a ninja, and a hulking brute. She proved unbeatable, to Orphan's delight, but Mother was less than thrilled when she found out. David pleaded that Cassie was proof the old ways still worked. The new methods made impure children, and that his daughter could destroy them even if they attacked all at once. That is, provided he hasn't pointlessly killed them all. Mumsy smacks him, and Cass almost attacks, but is called off. While always the favorite, David is scolded for going behind Mother's back, thus questioning her methods. Things change and they have to adapt, but he can keep his pet as long as she doesn't taint their operations and stays out of Mother's sight, topping off her lecturing by assuring David can be replaced. Kane is still sure he's correct, but must wait for the right opportunity to prove it so, I guess. And we see Sculptor was there personally for all of this.
How precisely did Orphan keep her a secret for so long? There's so much involved in raising a child, he would have to have been incommunicado for long periods of time, making up excuses to Mother, not to mention finding those kids covertly so he could kill them wherever they came from. And all before he was certain that he could leave Cassie alone while he was sent off to kill people. Not that it worked out, because eventually Mother found her, somehow. I mean, I know it's a lousy origin, so maybe it shouldn't bother me that much. But it's a lousy new origin, so it really, really bothers me!
Now Bluebird is taken to a building in Gotham, to Sculptor's surprise. Apparently there were crossed wires and she locked onto something in Harper's mind, and they need to leave right now. Someone is heard screaming and Harper follows it to see Cassie holding a woman by her hair as she pleads for her life, before the young assassin ends it. Sculptor says it was who she was raised to be, but has since tried to make amends. And wouldn't want Harper to see it because, of course, everything has to come back to Lady Bird droppings here.
You know what these psychic time trips really are? They're a means for the writers to spoon-feed Cassie's origin to unfamiliar readers. They're rushing through a lot of what was actually developed much better and done much more competently in her solo Batgirl title, and not only was this done to Stephanie Brown in Batman Eternal, it's only part of the problem.
Getting back on track, they return to the nursery, where a voice is saying there's more than 24 from you to choose from, which seems like another typing error. Running through the catacombs, Sculptor is about to show Bluebird the answers to Grayson's questions, but might not like what she sees. The voice continues that they've settled on the true heir to the Batman legacy, and that's just who Rose sees talking to Mother, impressed with her program and wanting to know when he can meet his successor. In disbelief, Bluebird thinks Sculptor is messing with her when Grayson borrows her taser and uses it on the telepath, taking them out of the mind share. It was apparently a dangerous move, but the spy doesn't much care. Harp tells him she saw Batman seemingly buying a new Robin, but didn't find out who it was. Disregarding the danger with his spiral safeguards, Dick demands Sculptor take him in to see for himself, even if it kills them.
Try checking Bruce's tax filings. Maybe he kept the receipt.
Issue 12, Brisson still scripting, sees Grayson repeat his demands, and Harper asks if using his hypnos on a psychic is such a good idea. Not that we have any context for Ro knowing anything about secret spy tech, but that's the Eternal books for you. She's told not to take him out under any circumstances until he finds out what happened with bats, and so his strange psionic adventure begins. The two fight a little against a different crazy backdrop than we saw last. She vanishes and escapes through a doorway. Dick follows, finding Sculptor as a child when her parents were killed by an equally young David Kane under Mother's order. The two children, as a proverbial Adam and Eve, the girl's telepathy would help build an Eden, and Sculptor had little choice but to go along. And is she giving them wine? My, but she's a permissive pseudo-parent.
Truly, Sculptor has proven herself to be quite the cheap plot device. She's only given psychic powers because it's more important for Harper Row to see Cassie's origin than it is for the reader to learn about it like they did pre-Flashpoint. And if she has these abilities, if she can influence people, read their minds and so forth, why hasn't she stopped Mother already? If Mother has some kind of psychic defense, it has not been established.
David loved his work, even though they were trained not to take pleasure in it, totally believing that the selected children were only made better through Mother's methods. Note, in the scene of him pulling a child from a car crash, another kid is dead on the ground. I thought the whole point was to take children from their parents, not kill them? He really is bad at his job. Sculptor, meanwhile, did her telepath thing to make the kids what the boss hag wanted, taking out whatever wasn't needed, keeping the tragedy in their minds, but when she could, let them know they were loved as she pushed them to be better for Mother. But hers was a conditional love, There was no room for weakness in her regime, and failure meant being discarded. After everything they'd gone through, that was too much. After seeing children study in academics, combat, and neck snapping, Grayson isn't buying the twisted justification, and Sculptor says she doesn't believe it herself anymore. But Mother's children could be activated as her weapons at any time, crippling society. The politicians, lawyers, doctors, etc. already out in the world can only be stopped by Mama Puppet Master, but recent exposures have led them to be discontinued and replaced by younger children whose trauma is stimulated rather than experienced, making Sculptor obsolete. She knows what she's done, her contribution to the abuse of so many, but wanting to give them a chance to survive, thinking that once sold off, they'd be free from Mother's influence. Because reasons, Sculptor can't join them, but psychically implants where to find her in Grayson's brain.
Wow, they're not even being subtle about how they can't answer the questions in their own book anymore. They know there's a plot hole, but they just don't care. This story was so necessary.
Now for Batman's dealings. Dick's shown Bats observing Mother's surveillance of Crane's site from a previous issue, told that Robin is how she discovered his secret. She fed Bruce Wayne information and, soon enough, is pursued by the Boy Wonder, a maneuver so shoddy the Dark Knight could not have authorized it. The fix is to give the Caped Crusader a deserving, obedient heir to help save Gotham. Batman agrees that his current sidekick isn't measuring up, despite the many chances he's had, and a delighted mother says they've pre-selected a candidate ready to be left parentless, once given the word to send orphan. But Pointy Ears insists on doing it himself, to be there at his new sidekick's proverbial birth. This isn't typical of Mother's business, but she agrees, as this will prove her newest customer's commitment. Dick doesn't believe any of this, however. Batman does not kill! It's the first rule!
Careful. There may be some Batman v Superman fans that would be offended by that remark.
Sculptor assures him that what he saw was true, but shouldn't blame Bats for his betrayal. That's Mother's influence. We then get a twisted version of the Dark Knight confirming his kills, turning demonic, and then berating Grayson as a mistake before the mind share ends. Harper asks what he saw, but he needs a minute, so pushes her away. Also, it's Harper Rose, so that was probably a natural impulse. He tries to force Sculptor to join them to save the children in the nursery, but she still can't, for unexplained reasons. As a horizontal diamond shape glows on her brow, she says they have what they need, and she disappears along with the house, leaving Ro and Dick in the wilderness. Keeping her priorities straight, Bluebird is angry that her first visit to a supervillain lair was all an illusion, since that's the real tragedy in this story. But Secret Agent Man says the flashbacks they saw made total sense. Sculptor cares about the children and wants them to be saved, just not enough to do anything about it herself with her psychic powers, of course. So they need to hurry since they could already be too late. And wouldn't you know it, in the nursery, we see a slew of dead children lying in pools of their own blood, and a foot trail of it that leads to a splash page where we see Cassandra huddled in a small hole in the wall covered in, you guessed it, blood.
Batman shoots people, Cassie kills kids. You know, there's only so much misdirection you can throw at a reader before it becomes clear you're insulting our intelligence. Tune in next week as this series continues to state the obvious in the worst way they can think of.